Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Beautifully Broken podcast. We are here at the Biohacking Congress in Las Vegas. Incredible. And I actually get to sit down with my friend Victor, and we are going to talk about all things water, wellness, maybe some molecular hydrogen, deuterium depleted water, and if all of those words sound new to you, we're gonna do a deep dive.
We're going to do a deep dive, yeah. As deep as we can.
As deep as we can in an hour.
In an hour, yeah.
Victor, if you met somebody in an elevator and they said, "Well, what do you do? What do you spend your time doing on planet Earth?" What would you say?
Well, it depends how long the elevator ride.
Right.
So I've actually thought about this one because I looked up, like, okay, if I had to do an elevator pitch, you have to consider how long is the elevator ride. So I looked, okay, what is the longest elevator ride in the world?
Yeah.
It's actually 3 minutes long. It's a mine. So if I have 3 minutes at the most.
Let's go with it.
So what do? I started out like early on in life interested in aging. You know, as a kid, I just look at old people, go, what is this process that nobody informs us about, and yet we all participate in? You know, aging. So I was kind of like an armchair gerontologist since I was a kid. You know, trying to figure out, you know, why does my grandma have, you know, why does her face look weathered? But her skin that's not exposed to the sun still looks like a baby. You know, I'm just trying to understand what is the mechanism that's responsible for our aging. I think it's a great question that, you know, we should try to solve while we're here.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of guided me, you know, to ask the questions, because it comes down to asking the right questions. So jump cut, let's say 40 years later, and I'm into deuterium depleted water. We have a company that makes deuterium depleted water called Litewater, and I believe that's the actual, like, that's the cherry on top. That's the cream on top, or the little ornament you put on the top of your Christmas tree. That is well, as we understand it now, or at least as far as I understand, and I like to explain to everybody that is one of the most important biohacks that we have, in terms of an intervention that we could do by doing something where it's a different concept, where instead of putting something in your body, you're actually taking something out.
Yeah.
So I've been on this path for, I first found out about it in 2004. So I've been on this path for, you know, most of my adult life. And before that, I was very into foods, you know, culinary, understanding the biochemistry of food, and so I've always been involved in this kind of holistic space.
Yeah.
Probably because maybe I was a little more sick than other kids when I was growing up around my peer group. So my questions were different. You know, why are they healthy and they're, you know, doing nothing for that? And here I am, unhealthy, trying to desperately to become healthy, and you know, for a long time just falling flat.
Yeah.
You know? So that made me kind of start the research of, you know, understanding myself, humans, biochemistry, aging. So
Yeah, beautiful. So if we walk it back to the deuterium depleted water, which you said was the cherry on top.
I believe so.
I mean, listen, so. I'm excited about
it's
it.
It's a foundational intervention. So
yes.
As I always tell people, go hike up to the source of the spring. It's not enough to wade in the water in the river. Go up there. Go where the trails don't lead, and find the source of where something is coming from. And if you find the source, you may be able to plug it up. You may be able to come up with some ideas that you didn't have before.
Yeah.
About the origin of things.
So it came up in my digging around, what can I do to support my body after going through metastatic cancer? And I kept seeing deuterium depletion come up. Actually contacted a agency in LA where we did a bunch of testing. We looked at my levels, and I went through a protocol of drinking this water. And the idea being that my body would have better mitochondrial health and be able to deal with the self-correction mechanisms that exist inside. Now,
absolutely,
this deuterium depleted, for people who have never heard this word, again, what would you say to a person who's just coming into the conversation? What is deuterium depleted water?
What I'll say is that not all water is equal. We look at a glass of water, and this is a good example because this water and food, you know, they ultimately provide energy for the body. But if you look at water, you think, oh, water, as we learn in school, is H2O. but it's not. There's so many different isotopes and variations of it, and one of those isotopes is deuterium. Now, deuterium is a heavier form of hydrogen. Okay, so it has a neutron, whereas regular hydrogen protium does not. So this makes it twice the mass. And when you have something that's twice the mass, in this case, it leads to a lot of problems downstream for DNA, for mitochondria, for enzymes, everything downstream. So you look at this water, and it's H2O, and then 6 drops inside of that. Let's say you have a liter of water. So 6 drops of that, it's a very small amount, will be what's known as HDO. So instead of that 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen bond, it's 1 hydrogen, 1 deuterium. So that kind of makes it lopsided because a little bit, like this part's a little heavier than this one, right?
Right.
So that's deuterium. Deuterium is just a heavier form of hydrogen that we have to deal with. It's natural. It's been there since the beginning of the universe.
Yeah.
So, and levels have been rising. And what they discovered in the 50s was that when the deuterium levels vary around the world slightly based on geography and hydrological cycle. So what they found was that people that were drinking water that had less deuterium, slightly even, 16 to 20% less than the global average, they found that these people had an increased longevity and increased health span. In fact, it was found that this research was done in the Soviet Union originally, and what made them ask the question in the first place was, why are these people over here, which is in Siberia, the Yakutians, the Altaians, and some people in the Caucasus Mountains, but they particularly focused on a Siberian group. So why are these people that live in a very harsh, unwelcoming environment? They're pretty much like Eskimos. You know, they don't get much sun. They don't have any vegetables. You know, it's the farthest from a Mediterranean diet you can imagine. A lot of raw meat, and at that time, a lot of soot from carbon in their homes. You know, because they're stoves. So these people don't live a healthy lifestyle.
Sure.
Although the environment is fairly clean, but yet they had 7 times more centenarians, people over 100, than anywhere else in the Soviet republics.
7x.
7x per 1 million. So per 1 million, they had I think one study was 324 centenarians per 1 million people population. And everywhere else, it was a lot lower.
Right.
You know, like 20, 25, 6, you know, per million. So
it's a big number.
It's a big number. So people got it. People saw this, and so why, right? And then they spent probably about 5 years trying to figure it out, because they're like, what is it? Is it their diet? Is it their genetics? Is it their environment? Is it the air? And then they honed in on the water they were drinking. And it was interesting, since this was done in the 50s, it was less than 20 years before that they had even discovered that hydrogen has another isotope. That, oh, well, hydrogen is all hydrogen. You know?
Yeah.
And the reason hydrogen is so important for everything, for our bodies, for the universe, it's 75% of the universe is hydrogen, by the way. And so the reason it's so important is because it's so simple. It's the only element that doesn't have a neutron. It's just a proton and electron. So it's just like fire, you know.
So my question is, you said around the world, levels of deuterium in nature exist at varying degrees of levels.
Correct.
So give me a way to express that. My understanding is it's measured in ppm, parts per million.
Yeah.
So what would someone in let's say the mountains of Colorado versus LA versus Antarctica? What are those levels? What's the range?
Right. Because you could strategically place yourself to live in an area where you have less deuterium, and you'll find that you feel healthier, more energetic. So the ocean is 155.76. Okay, and then
155.76.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's pretty exact, actually.
Yeah. Wow.
But and then the average for drinking water for around the planet is 150.
Okay.
So that's LA. You mentioned LA, and then in Colorado, you have in certain parts of Colorado, you have all the way down to the high 130s, so 138, 139, which doesn't seem like a big delta of difference, but it is, because this is over time. This is on a linear scale of the time of your life. So you just compare when you drink a year's worth of water. You know, we'll talk about food as well, but when you drink a year's worth of water at 150 ppm, and then you drink a year's worth of water at 139, and you look at the energy benefit, right? You have a net energy benefit.
Yeah.
Versus in the two, and you'll see that there's a clear and a big difference over time in just a slight drop in deuterium levels. In fact, I noticed it when I go to Boulder, Colorado. The people are all active, they're healthy, they're just, it's where the Olympians train. They think it's because of the elevation. That's part of it, but really it's because the water is slightly lower in deuterium. So where you find, I'm kind of trying to mind read your next question, and why in some places it's lower than others, right?
Let's do why.
It's because of the hydrological cycle. So the oceans take up most of the water in on our planet. So they have a lot of influence. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if your hydrological cycle is away from the ocean, like in a localized area, for example, the eastern slope of the Rockies and the Sierras too, you'll notice that hydrological cycle is more localized. Unless a weather pattern flies in, shifts in from the ocean, really that cycle is like this. So there's no influence from other places, and then other places. So that's one, the hydrological cycle away from the ocean. So in a localized area, you have lower deuterium because it's more concentrated, more localized, without influence. But also latitude makes a difference too, somewhat. And that's because the way the hydrological cycle works, when water evaporates and then condenses down, and this is just amplified at higher latitudes because it's colder. So when the water evaporates, it turns to ice faster. So it goes to this dynamic of separation a lot faster, and the cycle happens more. It's a more concentrated. So in fact, what we did, or my colleagues did, over a 20-year period, when they created this process and this factory facility to remove the deuterium from water, is just study the hydrological cycle and then copy it and try to amplify it, or in this case, succeed at amplifying it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So if I get my hands on some deuterium depleted water, low deuterium water,
Right.
What is the process in my body? How is that helping my body to be more apt to age slowly?
You already have access to deuterium depleted water, actually. It's the water inside your cells and your mitochondria, specifically in the mitochondria, nanoconfined spaces where the energy is made.
Yes.
That is deuterium depleted.
Now everybody at home needs to know that your cells create a special type of water. So walk us through that process as well.
It's called metabolic water.
Got it.
Okay. So all the water that we make, that we synthesize, is homemade. It's
Right.
none of the water that we drink makes it into the mitochondria. Okay.
Interesting.
So
how much water do we make a day internally?
It's like 1,500 gallons, I think. About.
Really?
Yeah. Recycle. Yeah.
Recycle.
1,500 gallons. We can 20% of the water of our daily water needs are recycled. And then maybe, and this is kind of what I've been playing with as a biohacker myself, is seeing with fasting and stuff, and seeing, hey, can you increase that? Can you increase the amount of water that your body can recycle and depend less on external water? So this metabolic water is just synthesized in the process of making energy, just like you would in a lab. Two hydrogens and an oxygen, and kaboom, you got water. But this water is highly structured metabolic because the mitochondria doesn't want any contaminants, especially deuterium, which is the number one contaminant for the mitochondria. So so you have deuterium depleted water inside of you. In fact,
amazing.
In fact, you've got quite a bit.
Yeah.
because we have trillions of.
So I'm making the deuterium depleted water internally.
You are.
And when I'm drinking my tap water from Austin, Texas, I'm increasing deuterium. Correct?
You are.
Because my internal pure source would be depleted.
Well, it's that these nanoconfined spaces in the mitochondria, they do everything they can to keep the outside world out, right? Except for what they need as fuel, which is food broken down eventually down into protons and electrons. So you have a lot of mitochondrial water, and when you drink normal water or bulk water, that hydrates you. There's so many reactions and processes.
Yes.
In the body, right? So this water, there's a mechanism, known as hydrogen exchange, And the hydrogen exchange, what happens is, let's say you drink deuterium depleted water, and there's a mechanism where those hydrogens become exchanged. The heavier hydrogens, which are your deuterium, become exchanged for the protium, which is the lighter hydrogen, and so you expel the heavier water. So this is done over time. It's not like you can get rid of or lower your deuterium levels in the body overnight, but it's a gradual process. So, and there's other ways you can do it. Or drinking deuterium depleted water is the best way. It's a total hack because it didn't exist before, right?
Yeah.
Except in maybe 15 to 20% lower than nature. But you can now go even go lower because of science. So, but food, fats, fats are naturally more depleted than carbohydrates. Nature's strategy is to put the deuterium into the carbs and try to keep the fats depleted. And fats are our best fuel source, produce the most amount of ATP compared to glucose. So yeah, you can increase your diet to be more fat. You can increase the space, the time in between meals, because every meal you have introduces not only more food but more deuterium. So you can practice intermittent fasting. You can practice dry fasting, which is going without water or food for as long as you can.
What's the longest you've dry fasted for?
About 7 days.
About 7 days
Yeah, it was
without
actually,
water or food.
it was a little less than 7 days.
Wow.
I was going for 7, and then my mom said, "You better quit this, man." I was great. I was like day 6.5. My mom's like, "Dude, you haven't eaten or drank in 6.5 days, and from what I know growing up, you'd be dead by day 3. So this is getting me worried, and you better stop." I'm like, okay. All right. But I realized that, yeah, you can, I know people that have gone 10 days.
Wow.
I know 2 people that have gone 10 days. I've read about a person that done 14 days that under clinical supervision, which is the maximum you can do under clinical supervision. It's about 14 days that they've observed. So it just shows you that you need a lot less than you think. And the reason dry fasting or the fact that you don't have water, that you're drinking water doesn't kill you, is because you're making the water while you're dry fasting. Now, certainly at some point it's gonna go away, but when you burn fat, you produce metabolic water. So if you burn a kilo of fat, you produce about an equivalent amount, a liter of almost a liter of deuterium depleted water, which is metabolic water.
Yeah.
And that metabolic water is about 60 to 70% lower in deuterium than regular bulk water.
Yeah,
So,
I guess my question is, and again, so people could grasp the value of this as far as health span, expanding our longevity. What is happening to a beneficial standpoint in that cell when we're drinking deuterium depleted water, or we're getting our levels down internally? How does that help me from an end user?
It's so much, because it affects everything from DNA to enzymes, proteins, peptides, but more importantly, the mitochondria. So the way the mitochondria works, and the way the mitochondria, as we know, is the powerhouse of the cell. It produces the adenosine triphosphate, or ATP, that is the energy currency of our biology.
Sure.
And ATP is made different processes in the body, but the process that makes the most ATP is in the mitochondria, known as the electron transport chain. And this is a chain that feeds protons, electrons, toward a motor. This motor, actually, it's a little nanomotor. It's beautiful. It's like,
I've seen pictures of this
Yeah.
rendered by MIT, and it's pretty wild. It actually looks like a little turbine spinning around.
it's a motor generator.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. It looks
Yeah.
exactly like a motor that we would design.
Yeah.
But it actually is a good argument, a great argument for
Yeah.
intelligent design, because there's no way that the way these two, the F0 and the F1 parts of this motor, the way they are arranged, there's no way that nature would have created this. It's like saying, here, let's put this chunk of metal, out in the lawn, and watch it for the next billion years and see how long it takes for it to evolve into an internal combustion engine.
Yeah.
Something has to manipulate it. An outside force has to come in. Otherwise, it's just going to be a chunk of metal forever. So this motor is amazing, because it shows that it's intelligent design that put this thing together, because there's no way through evolution that these two parts would have come together, this motor generator. And this thing simply takes protons, spins. As those proton spins, this generates ability to make ATP, and adenosine diphosphate comes in and it puts that other phosphate on there, and now you have ATP. And this happens. We have 35 trillion cells in our body, and then we have each cell has 1 to 2,000 mitochondria when if you're healthy.
If you're healthy,
and then each of these each mitochondria has I think something like 350,000 of these nanomotors, and these nanomotors are spinning. They spin up to 9,000 RPM at perfect translation of energy, right? 100% efficiency, which we can't do in a motor yet ourselves. So it's quite profound.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So every 7 seconds, instead of these motor getting a proton, which is what it's looking for, because it's got a little square peg or a round peg for a round proton.
Yeah.
And then this thing comes in every 7 seconds. That's twice the size. It's carrying a neutron along, right? And it tries to fit in that spot that's reserved for a proton. And when it tries to do this, this motor stutters, creates wear and tear. Okay.
Shearing almost.
Yeah, I mean a lot of things happen, but this motor that spins, I think it's 500 protons per second. So every 5 seconds you get a deuterium, so it causes it to stutter. And this stuttering, while the stuttering is happening, no ATP is produced, but it also creates wear and tear.
Because in nature, in this process, this neutron, that's also part of nature. So the nanomotor, I want to track this back for me, myself, and everybody listening.
Yeah.
It is used to seeing a neutron every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
It's trying to keep it all out. But it can't. Because it's our environment. We evolved in it. We're just here. It's just here. We're here. We got to coexist.
Yes.
So mechanisms exist. You know what the Krebs cycle is, right?
Yes.
Okay. Or the St-Georgi cycle, as some other call it, citric acid cycle. So this is when I first started learning or studying this in the late 90s, I'm thinking, man, everything I've learned from yoga doesn't line up with this Krebs cycle thing, because yoga teaches us, or just common sense teaches us, or just observation teaches us that nature likes the path of least resistance. Everything likes to be simple, right? If you can,
yes,
right?
We've all experienced that in the morning. What is my path of least resistance to the black coffee?
Right.
Whatever it is.
So if you could teleport, you would do that instead of taking the plane, right? You want to
Yes.
get there. You want the path of least resistance. And the Krebs cycle looked like, it doesn't seem like the path of least resistance. This thing is terribly complicated. Why
Right.
is it so complicated? And then I found out years later, because this was the work of Dr. Boros, who coined the term deuteronomics, which is the study of how deuterium is managed by the body. He explained that the reason it's so complicated because it's a series of gates to exchange deuterium for regular hydrogen. It's trying to keep deuterium out. So the reason is for its complexities is because it's like 20 to 22 little steps. They're trying to exchange out the deuterium.
And for people at home, again, the Krebs cycle is a process that also makes energy, but it would look or appear less efficient.
Yeah.
Because there are so many processes.
Well, it just produces less ATP, but it all feeds into the electron transport chain.
Yes.
So yeah, this is but what's the takeaway here is you have something very complex in nature, and you look at it and go, why? Why is it so complex? And nobody could give a adequate explanation, at least for me, until this deuterium problem was introduced. And you go, aha, of course it's so complicated. It's just a series of gates trying to keep this stuff out. So it evolved out of necessity, because otherwise it wouldn't be so complex, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't evolve to have that complexity to try to keep this deuterium out. In fact, there's a lot of metabolic reactions that try to exchange deuterium for hydrogen. We're just starting to find out about, because there's so many metabolic processes in the body. But this is something that's so new, you know.
Yes.
I mean, it was known about that deuterium damages, see, deuterium is heavy, right? So you could look, you can simplify it very easily, and it still be valid.
Mm-hmm.
The things that are heavy slow you down,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're lighter, you've got more speed. You're lighter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what deuterium does. It slows down everything, from top to bottom, bottom to top, from the very smallest to the very largest. And it also makes anything that it's attached to where that thing is looking for a hydrogen.
Mm-hmm.
It causes it to be lopsided because this thing's heavier. So you got a hydrogen here, and you want to have a hydrogen here, but so you got a deuterium here, so it's heavier.
Yeah.
So you have this kinetic isotope effect. Kinetic isotope effect talks about how a molecule disassociates. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so if you have a hydrogen carbon bond versus a deuterium carbon bond,
Mm-hmm.
that deuterium carbon bond disassociates 9 times slower. 9 times slower.
Yeah.
It's like, if you woke up tomorrow and you were twice the weight,
Right.
you'd be like, oh my God, like
Yes.
all of a sudden you gain double your mass.
Yeah.
You'd be like, this is it's hard to get used to, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna drag yourself around. It's gonna be hard. There's gonna be a lot of resistance. It's a burden. It's a burden, friction. So it's a friction. Everything wants to go at the right speed, and you got the slowpoke over here blocking the lane.
Yeah, it's wild to think that the structure of water on our planet, as we know it, is a large contributor. And we're not saying toxic water; we're just saying water in general, the way it exists,
and the amount of
is causing our aging.
And when you look at it, the amount of deuterium is 0.0125% of all the hydrogen that exists. That's basically almost like nothing.
Yeah.
And that's why it was overlooked for so long. It's like, you're going to tell me that something that a hydrogen that is only 0.0125% of the whole constituency of hydrogen is something that's going to cause you to age and break down your cells. But in fact, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you look at it, or at least the way Dr. Olgun, who discovered in 2007 the actual process of how it damages mitochondria and the electron transport chain in a nanomotor. That's why I said this was new, 2007.
Right.
60 years, when they knew it was 60 years, they knew that addition of deuterium slows you down, decreasing of deuterium, the depletion of deuterium speeds you up, metabolically. 60 years later, 2007, says here's why, or one of the reasons why, big reason why, is these nanomotors. So the way, and Dr. Olgun, I asked him, what made you even consider this problem? And he said it was because I looked at this question, 0.0125, okay, it's not very much. 3 drops of HDO in a glass of H2O, it's not very much. Then he looked at it, okay, but because we are made up of water, we're molecularly almost 98 or more % water.
Yeah.
He looked, okay, well, how much of this stuff is in our blood? And then he saw, oh, this is interesting. It's 5 to 6 to 7 times more than the basic constituents that we need, to live. Glucose, magnesium, potassium, calcium, all the minerals and simple sugars is like 5 to 7 times more deuterium in our blood. So it's ubiquitous. So we have all the mitochondria is trying to manage it. They're trying to manage it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything in their body is trying to manage this deuterium from getting into the electron transport chain and then ultimately breaking down our motors. Because what happens is, if you have a motor, and okay, so if you have a deuterium hit it, causes it to stutter, a little wear and tear, enzymes come in, try to repair it, you think, okay, no big deal. Of course, yes, this is continuous, this is cumulative, this is like kiss, 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 and then elbow to the face, kiss, 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 elbow to the face. It's like, it's nonstop. So where does it cause the breakdown of the mitochondria? Because you could see that it'll slow down energy production as those motors get hit. It'll slows down the energy production. But as you have this wear and tear and this shaking, this stutter, this shaking, what does it do over time? It weakens the membrane that's attached to that motor. That motor is locked in a membrane. The reason those protons are able to come in this way and go out this way is because there's more here than here. So there's a gradient,
Yes.
Everything here wants to go here because there's less of it here. So it's like it's getting sucked in, and if that membrane starts to leak, then those protons are only supposed to go into this inner mitochondrial space in the matrix through the motor. But if it goes in through the membrane, it starts to leak, and then those protons equalize,
Yeah.
And then no motor spins, no energy is created.
Yeah.
You get jammed up with protons coming in and everything. You get inflammation, you know, and then
Totally.
apoptosis.
So
senescence
back to
apoptosis.
when I originally said this came up in a search when I was looking up ways to support the body post cancer treatment. Why is a deuterium level that is depleted associated possibly with somebody having a better path through cancer? I've seen this research come up, and I know it's something they're starting to explore and look at. I think I told you this at one point. One of my favorite books is The Metabolic Approach to Cancer.
Yes.
And they just look at supporting the mitochondria so the body can have a better fighting chance.
It is many scientists and researchers, doctors believe cancer is a metabolic disease.
Yeah.
So, but this work is actually not that new on this front. There's a doctor in Hungary, Dr. Gabor Szymlai, and he wrote a book 20 years ago where it was a book on how to defeat cancer using deuterium depletion as an adjuvant treatment. Didn't stop the treatments
Yes.
that they were doing, whatever, chemo, radiation, surgery, whatever. But he so he wrote this book based on, at that time, I believe it was about 300 case studies, and since then he's now got a new book this year. He's got over 3,200 case studies now, and what he found was that the survivability. This was published in the paper. The survivability was about 8x for people that had some neoplastic condition. So it's a metabolic, and as he claims, it's a metabolic issue, right? You need the cancer. I mean, that's a complex topic.
Of course.
But the more energy you have, body's a self-healing organism. So the more energy you have, more mitochondrial energy, more ATP.
Yeah.
The better your chances are of fighting this cancer. But it's a complex topic. I'd love to get into it because there's so much I could share on this one topic alone. But
I think it's good for people to, again, it's like I look at these topics as a we're flipping a stone and maybe there's something sparkly under there that you want to explore more and do more research about. And I think I don't hear deuterium depletion water or light water. It's rare that anybody knows what I'm talking about.
I know.
They're like, what are you saying?
They will.
They're like, I got a Berkey. Walk me back to the Berkey.
Listen, for a long time, I don't think people even realized cells had any bioelectric potential or any voltage.
Sure.
You know, I sat with a double PhD one time at a microscopy course, and we were talking about something, and I just made an offhand comment like, well, maybe it's because of the voltage of the cell is off. He goes, what? Yeah, maybe the voltage. He goes, what are you talking about? I go voltage to cell. He goes, what? Cells have voltage? We got 2 PhDs in medicine.
Yeah.
That was a new concept for him,
Yeah.
I mean, I was a drama major, so.
Yeah.
I mean, among other things, but the point is that there's so much that we have yet to learn.
Yeah.
And it takes time for these things to come into textbooks. So just to back up a little on the cancer side, it's really all about bioelectricity. It's about, like you said, the voltage of the cell.
Yeah.
Right. So if the voltage of the cell is weak, then it can't replicate properly. The way I explain neoplastic condition very simply is there's a stem cell. That stem cell is going to differentiate into the final cell that it's going to be. Okay.
Right.
It needs energy to differentiate, just like we need energy to do anything in our life. And if it doesn't have the right voltage or the right energy, as it's making that transition, like it's very much like when the cell transitions into its final form, it's very much like Superman going into a telephone booth, spinning around and transforming into Superman. So Clark Kent walks in, Superman walks out. So stem cell walks in, differentiated cell comes out. Okay, but what if it didn't have enough energy to make that spin fully?
Yeah.
Right. So now it's stuck. Now it has the quality of a stem cell, which is different than a normal cell, right? And so it's stuck in between. So it's this cancer cell that has this ability to hyper replicate, like the stem cell does. It has that same kind of primal ability to grow faster than other cells. but it's not. It's mutated. It's a mutated stem cell.
Mm-hmm.
So the body doesn't attack it right away, or ever,
Right.
because it says, oh, this is just my cell, you know. So the latest therapies of cancer treatment is to tag that cancer cell, tag it as something that the immune system goes after,
Mm-hmm.
because the immune system goes, this is my own cell. I don't, you know, it doesn't recognize. Somebody could say, hey, that's bad, you know. Eventually, you know, something happens and the cancer is managed,
Mm-hmm.
but it only managed if the body has the energy.
Yeah.
Which is like diminishing returns, because as the cancer diminishes of your energy, you need more to fight it. So
Yeah.
that's why it's usually, you know. Can be
Yeah,
terminal.
I mean, again, if we look at the numbers, you know, one equation or way to look at that energy potential that I've been talking about lately is the idea that we have, you know, the Human Genome Project mapped 25,000 genes, and then we have like 140,000 protein expressions.
Right.
So the idea that we've got more types of cells than we do blueprints for, which you said, it's like Superman goes into the booth, he comes out of, you know, one of 8 characters. Who is it?
Right.
And if the energy's not there, you know, I think that's a great way to look at it. And it also, it points to, we don't understand everything about the body yet, and what is healing and what is healing potential.
What we do understand
Yeah.
is if we have enough energy,
Yeah.
all things are possible.
All things are possible. Yeah. So supporting the body in that way, you know, we're looking at this. We're opening the door around water, deuterium. How would somebody go about using this in their life, or what would be a typical way for somebody to get started? Do you just start drinking depleted water? Is there a parts per million level that a person should begin at? It's probably individualized, but I've tested before. I've done multiple tests. I've done ones that were just saliva. I've done ones that were saliva and breath.
Breath vapor. Do you know
Yeah.
do you know the difference between the two?
Yes. Yeah.
You do? You know
Yeah.
the difference? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we're trying to determine, and I think my test was like, how much deuterium do you have, and how much am I versus how much I'm expelling or
Yeah.
getting rid of.
Right. Right.
And we wanted to know that. We wanted to know that my body wasn't naturally accumulating excess deuterium.
Right.
So there was an importance around which way to test. Could you remind me which one
Right.
it was?
So if when you test saliva,
yes.
you get a pretty good sense of what the body is at, or the extracellular tissue, right?
Mhm.
When you do the breath vapor,
Mm-hmm.
that's more indicative of your metabolic water.
Got it.
So you look at the difference between the two,
Mm-hmm.
and you see if the metabolic water, if the breath vapor, what's the delta between your saliva test and your metabolic water, or your breath test. And if you have a wide delta, that means your body is doing a good job. It's filtering. It's
Yeah.
filtering that deuterium out.
Yeah.
But if they're the same, your body's not doing a good job, or
Yeah.
no job at all. It's just run amok. So and that's where, in a clinical sense, you would use those two tests.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, people just use saliva because when they're on a protocol,
Yes.
because it's because your goal is to just test what your base level is, you know, in your
Yes.
in your entire body as an average. So when you go down by what was it you drink 150 ppm, and then you
Mhm.
go down to in the 120s. It's like
Mhm.
16 to 20% lower.
150 ppm down to like 125
In the 120s, in your body, yeah,
Yes.
in your body, you'll notice it.
Yeah.
You'll notice it because
Mhm.
you're taking off a burden
Mm.
that's been there.
And how long would that take for somebody? Let's just take my body weight, 170 pounds.
30 to 90 days.
Okay.
Sometimes you can notice differences earlier, but you'll drop about a half a ppm to 1 ppm per day
Okay.
when you drink deuterium depleted water.
Mhm.
And in the beginning, the dilution of your deuterium depleted water is not as important as later, because in the beginning, if you drink water that's 120 ppm,
Mhm.
you're going to drop, right? Your body's going to go down to equal out or try to get close to with the water you're drinking.
Mhm.
Of course, food is also something that you take into account in this
Mhm.
case too.
Yep.
So in our modern world, our diets are very carbohydrate dependent,
Mhm.
and also there's a lot of concentrated food. right?
Yeah.
A lot of things that have been just compacted, nutrient dense. But in that nutrient density or that concentration, you also expose your body to more deuterium. And in those complex carbs, you expose your body to more deuterium. And in the eating of multiple meals per day, because I remember from my early 20s when I was studying yoga, and it said, okay, a yogi eats once a day, a healthy normal person eats twice a day, a stupid person eats 3 times a day, and a crazy person eats 4 times a day. This is the ancient texts, okay? So, so okay, you don't need this much, you need so it's just it's a internal management process.
Yeah.
Of even mainstream medical studies show that calorie restriction increases lifespan.
Yeah.
With animals.
Yeah.
Humans.
Even there's some good data to support a 48-hour fast previous to going into a chemotherapy regime. And
Right.
that the body creates a sort of neuroprotective environment in which there's less collateral damage within the body.
Right. Well, you can't make any growth hormone when you're digesting food. So if you just stop that, then you can increase the growth hormone in your body, which affects everything. So we have a mechanism that we're just starting to understand how our bodies work, and like I said, I just wanted to go to I'm only interested in going to the source of something, the upstream, and find out what is causing all this other stuff. Because Band-Aids are great, but at the end of the day, they're just Band-Aids.
Yeah.
So how do we actually, what do we do to increase our lifespan, like for real? And not only our lifespan, but our health span. Because I don't think I want to be 100, just, all rickety, I want to have a long health span.
Yeah.
So and you see that with a number of people that are you see it with a number of people. It's a very small number.
Yeah.
But you see people in their 90s and even in their 100s that aren't having any mental or not much mental decline. With the exception of certain markers of physical aging, they're pretty much functional, or you could say that they're more than functional. You could say that they're still capable.
I have a couple questions for you, just because I want to also be aware of we're Biohacking Congress. We have our hour. I'm like kind of watching our time here. If of course I could say who would want to do this in their life, and you could easily say everybody. But if there was a group or a subset of the population right now that you see that's really struggling, is there somebody that you would love to see integrate deuterium depletion protocols into their journey with whatever they're struggling with?
I don't know. I haven't really looked at it in that way. I haven't looked at it from a biased view like that.
Okay.
Like who, because I've always tell people who should drink this. I say, well, our customers are those who can afford to drink it and those who can't afford not to.
Yeah.
Because some people should be on it because it's their life. But I think what I'm most interested in is athletes. I like to see athletes get into this because I think it's going to change human performance going forward.
Yeah, great
point. One of my favorite studies in this is in 1999, in Moscow, they horse racing. Okay, so there was a 4-year-old horse that won that set a new world record. Not a new world record, a new Russian record. Okay, and they gave it 2 hours before, gave it 10 liters of deuterium depleted water. So it had that instant mitochondrial activation, and it caused that horse to break the national record. So that's cool. So I think that it's the extreme of human potential that I'm interested in this case. Certainly anybody that says, okay, anybody that gets up in the morning tired, change that. Change that fast. And you can change that in 30 days or less. But I'm most interested in what the human potential is here. Where can we really flip the script on our ability to break a 3-minute mile, or the best of us. What can they do? And for the rest of us, it's just great because you just feel like you felt your entire life. Well, I was sick up until my mid-20s, but after that I pretty much figured that out. and I've been feeling pretty good since then. And I
Yeah.
still feel the same. So it's the name of the game is mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're young, a cell might have 2,000 mitochondria floating in there, little
Yeah.
energy factories. And when you're old, maybe there's a couple hundred.
Yeah.
So, the body is willing, but it can't.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the mitochondria is weak. It doesn't have the factories, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have the factories, you don't produce the goods. If you don't have the goods, you can't enjoy them. So that's for anybody, yeah, for anybody. But if you're specifically dealing with any metabolic issues, this might be something you should look into, because that slight little delta may be all you need.
Yeah.
If you look at the general population, you'll see that most people are. I don't want to say most people, but in what I've seen, you see a good number of people have deuterium levels that are even higher than occur naturally on the planet. So if the highest is 155 and you're walking around with 157, that's not good at all.
Yeah.
So you just want to ease the burden on the body and the cells.
Mm-hmm.
We're working nonstop.
Yeah.
You know how much ATP we produce per day?
No idea.
Twice our body weight.
Yeah.
It gets recycled. So we're constantly working. We just want to less resistance,
Mm-hmm.
more capacitance,
Mm-hmm.
higher voltage, but without the resistance.
Yeah.
So we just want an easier path forward, an easier way, path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I looked at. Where can I find path of least resistance? Okay, lower the deuterium. That'll
Yeah.
increase your path of least resistance.
It's certainly in my top 5 biohacks that I think people should at least explore, learn about, lean into some research. Where would you point someone to go to read about deuterium depletion or to learn more?
They could go to our website,
Mm-hmm.
litewaterscientific.com,
Mm-hmm.
LITEWATER and scientific, or Drink Light Water, same thing, goes to the same place.
Excellent.
Yeah, drinklitewater.com. And then there's other websites. We have a testing testing lab that we started called deuteriumtest.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's deuteriumdepletion.org that I put up that has tried to put all the studies that I could find,
Great.
on that. Where else? There's a Deuterium Depletion Summit. We did our first summit last year. We had the world's leading scientists, doctors, thinkers, influencers in the space of deuteronomics, which is this new biochemistry of the study of how the body manages deuterium.
Incredible.
And so you can go to these deuteriumsummit.com. So there's a number of websites. But I would start at drinklitewater.com and read the history.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote this history because I thought it was important for people to know the provenance of where this comes from and how incredible it is and how new it is and how amazing the potential of this is, and give proper credit to the people that helped create this. So I'd start there, drinklitewater.com.
Beautiful. Well, I really appreciate you being a guest.
Thank
Final
you.
question, Beautifully Broken podcast. We talk about putting the broken pieces of when we stumble and we fall, and really the energy behind the action. What does it mean to you to be beautifully broken?
Well, to be beautifully broken, let me think about that. So you're perfect as you are. That comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it reminds me of a Salvador Dali quote.
Mm.
Don't fear perfection, because you'll never reach it.
Yeah.
So broken is perfect, right?
Yeah.
And it also is what moves you forward. Right? If you don't fail at something, then you wouldn't go forward to find a solution or an answer,
Yeah.
and that's where the aha comes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Beautiful.
it's our natural state. Embrace it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what makes it beautiful, right?
I know. I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us at the Biohacking Congress. You're going to be able to check out people like Victor, companies like Litewater in upcoming events. They're going to be in Boston, they're going to be in Miami, and I think nothing substitutes being in the room where it happens with people, shaking hands, talking to people, experiencing the tech, drinking the light water, being in the hyperbaric chamber. So I implore you to jump on a plane and come to one of these events that are closest to you.
Absolutely.
It really is special to be here in person.
It's good for the heart.
It's good for the heart. I mean, that's a huge component of healing is community for me, and being able to do these conversations live is so much better than Zoom. I'm done with Zoom. And we invite you into the door. So please join us. Until next time, Freddie Kimmel, your host. Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you.